And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Friday morning's flying weather graphic looks like this, with a lot of VFR here over mainland Alaska. From the Brooks Range out, lower conditions with IFR there for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, and marginal VFR, the Chukchi Sea, all the way down here into the Bering Sea. Then a weak front out here pushing some IFR into the western Bering. VFR here, Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, and marginal VFR up along the North Gulf Coast on down across the southeast coast with some IFR just off the coast of Prince of Wales Island. And then for the afternoon, that area of IFR vanishes, leaving behind quite an area of marginal VFR here all the way up into Lynn Canal and Glacier Bay, back west to Yakutat. VFR, mainland Alaska into the Kodiak Island area, western Gulf, Bristol Bay, northward there, now to the western Arctic coast. Still looking at IFR here for the eastern coastline up there. And a band of IFR with a weak front out here over the west central Aleutians and Bering Sea. And then for Saturday morning, got a weakening system pushing some IFR into the northern Bering Sea, St. Lawrence Island, right in across the Seward Peninsula, up along the northwest coast and southward into the Yukon Delta. Marginal VFR all the way up into the Kuskokwim Mountains. To the east, though, staying VFR, central eastern interior. Much better conditions there along the eastern north slope, but still some IFR along the Arctic coast, but VFR all the way down to the Gulf of Alaska. And marginal for the Alaska Peninsula to about Adak, and then IFR off to the west. And the Panhandle looking at some IFR here over the southern areas with that system pulling in that area with marginal VFR up to the north. But Yakutat westward there, VFR. And then for the afternoon, still some IFR over the southern Panhandle. Staying pretty good here over the east side, but you can see IFR pushing inland now right into the just about the central interior here, north and northwest of the Alaska Range. Marginal VFR into the Kuskokwim Valley eastward to the Alaska Range, and now down into Kamishak Bay, Shelikof Strait, marginal VFR. IFR right along the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. IFR back up here along the northwest coast into the Chukchi Sea, but improving out here over the Bering Sea with some VFR showing up in areas and marginal in others. For the passes, Anatuvik tomorrow's marginal VFR becoming VFR. That same trend for Adigan as well. Lake Clark and Merrill, in fact the entire Alaska Range will be VFR for the day on Friday. Rainy, windy. Isabel and Mentasta all looking really good. On either approach, Tanita, same thing, VFR. Portage, VFR. Then Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR. And for the freezing levels here, at the surface, all the way down here off the North Gulf Coast, or south of the North Gulf Coast, for tomorrow morning, right along the east side of Kodiak Island, 2,000 feet here over the northern Panhandle, 4,000 feet down over southern Dixon Entrance. And then southwest flow here and some upper high pressure brings 6,000 feet here up into the Pribilof Islands, 2,000 to 4,000 feet there, all the way up into the Bering Strait area. And icing, best chance to see some icing would be in these shaded areas here. One with a weak system coming in, bringing a threat of some possible icing into the northwest coast and down across the Seward Peninsula and Norton Sound. Then this weak front out here brings a chance of some isolated moderate icing into the west central Aleutians, narrow band out there. And then the best chance of finding some icing of significance would be here over the southern southeast coast with that stronger system pulling into that area. And for the jet stream, southwest winds, west-southwest, 85 knots across the southern Panhandle. Otherwise, northerlies here right through the interior at about 60 knots at 33,000 feet. High pressure ridge here from the actually the Chukchi Sea southward across the eastern Bering Sea and the Aleutians. To the west of that, big increase in the winds out there. Well, about 60 knots. The bigger increase way out there to the west. And then for 9,000 feet, we've got north winds at about 45 knots here across Bristol Bay up into the Kuskokwim Valley. Higher pressure to the west for lighter winds there and more of a westerly wind flow trying to push eastward here across the Bering Sea. And for the southeast coast, the stronger winds well south of the area there as that low center at the surface cuts in more to the south, but still looking at a low pressure area here off the north coast. So at 3,000 feet, this low at this elevation, the one to the south here, a little more significant than the one back here to the northwest, and that keeping the strongest winds down to the south, lighter winds with high pressure over the interior. Still some west-northwesterlies at maybe up to 40 knots to the extreme eastern Arctic coast. Otherwise, a couple of bands of stronger winds here. Cook Inlet down across the Barren Islands up to 40 knots there. Another band here coming across Bristol Bay in the Aleutian Range there, and then the Alaska Peninsula as well. And then out to the west, we've got westerlies at about 40 knots. Turbulence-wise, with that weak front, could be some isolated moderate turbulence there. That's going to only be around Kiska and Amchitka Island. And for the North Gulf Coast, looking at quite an area of mechanical moderate turbulence here for that'll extend into Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, down along the Barren Islands and the east side of Kodiak Island, over to about Yakutat, and heavier turbulence may slip in just south of the Panhandle there. And the eastern Beaufort Sea coast still could see some considerable moderate turbulence for the extreme eastern areas there.